passionate about Cleveland sports.
He's going in! Touchdown!
Browns, Indians, Cavs, the Big Ten, and more.
Cleveland is a city of champions once again!
Andy and Jarid, Cleveland and beyond.
A swing and a drive! To deep right!
Here are your hosts, Andy Billman and Jarid Watson.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Andy and Jarid, Cleveland and Beyond. He's Andy Billman. I'm Jarid Watson, and we are going to kick off part 3 of our Browns season review.
Cleveland Browns.
Where things started to look better. In previous episodes, we talked about how this is kind of like the Star Wars trilogy. Still feels that way. The original trilogy, that is. This is the Return of the Jedi episode. This part 3 of the Browns review, season in review 2018, Andy. We're not there yet.
No.
It's all about winning here. Baker feeling dangerous. Some craziness with Condoleezza Rice. So not all of it's coming up roses. Condoleezza Rice going to be the interviewed for the head coaching job. You remember that? And the Hugh and Baker one-sided feud kicks off and then continues into the second game as well when it comes down to the Browns-Bengals games. All of that coming up in just a few minutes. Andy, things got better.
Things got better. A big game in Denver on Saturday night. You saw a lot that really concluded with this big game in Baltimore. And what we really saw, I mean, honestly, all these different things happened. The Browns did a nice job of jamming as much stuff as you could into 1 year. And I'll tell you, to end what they did with the Ravens game was exciting. Before we get to all that stuff, let's hear from our folks at Thrive.
Adam Weinstein, the founder and CEO of Thrive Fantasy. For everybody who doesn't know, we're a new daily fantasy sports platform for prop bets. So definitely would love for you guys to check it out. We actually have a $10,000 guaranteed prize pool for NFL Super Bowl on Sunday. So we definitely have a lot of value and opportunity for you to make some money. Check out our deposit bonuses and matches via Celtics Pulse, and we'd love to see you on our app.
And, for everybody out there, again, Thrive is a wonderful product. Jared and I are going to be doing a special Super Bowl preview with Thrive, and we're going to be getting more into that, so please check it out. And for people who want to start, it's easy enough. Go to our Twitter handle, or go and you can click on the link right on the Andy and Jarid Cleveland and Beyond Twitter link, and go on there, click on the link, and it's easy from there to set up. I think it's much better set up for some of these other websites, and Thrive's a really good.
And you know what? While I'm thinking about it, Andy, I don't want to forget about this. I'm going to go ahead and try to add that to the website as well. It's at andyandjared.net, clevelandandbeyond.com. Get that added on there. So that if you're on our website or on our social media pages, you'll have easy access to sign up for Thrive and take advantage. And I can't wait to sign up and do the prop bets that we're looking to do for the Super Bowl. So
well, yeah, and I think also too, they're a big part of the Pulse Podcast Network, and we're excited to be a part of that as well. We should always mention that at the top. I forgot to do that the last time, so proud to be a part of that. And it's been an exciting start already. Similar to what the Browns had at the end was not how it started, though. They were not off to an exciting start. They really, as we reviewed back, they come off that loss to the Steelers and everything falls apart. And as you and I both mentioned leading up to that game, they had so much chaos going on. You want to talk about the wrong team and the wrong time. The KC Chiefs were the wrong team at the wrong time. That was game 9. You could not have picked a worse opponent. They were red hot. And as we all know, the Chiefs, even if they weren't red hot, they're a very talented team. You really saw Mahomes coming into his own this year. And so that led up to this week. And so where we left off was the hiring, and I shouldn't say the hiring, the readjustment of Greg Williams, the readjustment of Freddie Kitchens. Here's some of the player responses that came out and days afterwards after these announcements. So we'll pick it up here. Joe Patonio, I think, had the most interesting comment, Jared. Blindsided,
Agreed.
I would say. It's unfortunate anytime somebody you've been working with a few years gets fired. You never expect something like that to happen. It's adversity. Before you go, I again thought this was the right move before. I certainly believe it after. I know what Joel's saying, but Jared, don't you agree that was still the right move? I think we all know now it was, but that was the right move at the time. It was
the right move, months too late. Andy, the more I think about that comment and the more I think about Joel's reaction, I'm wondering if he's not the only guy on that line that has kind of stuck up for Hugh in a way. Joe Thomas was one that surprisingly, from what I remember, liked Hugh a lot.
He did.
Hugh I don't know what it is about that offensive line and those guys with him. But that seems to be how they felt, and I don't get it.
No, I agree with you. I think the thing that Hugh did that I don't, he did have some things that he did not come off correctly in the press. He definitely didn't come off right to Baker, which is a big problem. Yeah. And you can sit here and about what I'm ready to say, but I don't think Hugh Jackson's a bad guy. I want to say that again. Now, he had a very bizarre reaction to him getting fired. We should add that. So the Seth article, actually, to get the blank out of my office comment. I think that kind of plays into what we heard from Stanton also. Stanton also had a very interesting comment. Has anybody even seen this before with a 2-hour time period? Learning about the Seth article and reading what Stanton says, I think that bite now and that little has a lot more of a flavor to it, and you kind of understand what Stanton's saying. It's crazy and chaotic, but boy, it was even crazy and chaotic even during the firing of Hugh.
Right, but we can remember back to that. I mean, even I'll agree that it was strange the way it went down because they didn't make the announcements at the same time. It was almost like they were still mulling it over. I don't get how it was so disjointed. It felt very disjointed, and in that sense, especially with Drew Stanton, I'm wondering if some of those guys had a feeling that maybe not only was Hugh told that Todd Haley was going to get fired, but that might have leaked through the building. Some of the players might have heard some of that, so maybe they thought it was just going to be Todd Haley and had no idea it was going to be that Hugh was going to be a part of that.
Yeah,
I don't know. I still go back to
that's a really good point.
Here's the thing. You should have expected every week that Hugh could have been fired.
Yeah, I agree. Here's the thing, too. I didn't mean to step on you there. I didn't want to lose this thought. There was definitely a split in the building. Dorsey did the right thing. I think looking back at it, Jared, it still wasn't a clean execution. Now, I definitely feel differently about the hiring of Kitchens at the end. But right now, you can say it wasn't still a clean process.
Well,
Dorsey, and by the way, some of it's because
not much has been.
Right, no, I agree. But they were definitely looking at the Wickersham article and looking what happened here. Everybody was all over the place. But okay, we relived those moments enough. Let's get to the Kansas City game. If you look in the box score and you read this game, you probably be like, well, the Browns got rolled. And okay, let's take the first half. They did get rolled. They didn't play well in this game on defense. This was a game in particular where Jamie Collins really gets hammered by the press and gets hammered by social media and gets really hammered by Browns fans, even if they weren't on social media through call-in shows and whatever. Collins really got singled out in this game. The Hunt, obviously now Kareem Hunt, we look back, he's no longer a player in the Chiefs, but in this game he still was. Kareem Hunt had a career day. Kelsey had a career day, both Clevelanders. The interesting thing about something with Collins, though, he really got picked out on 3 separate plays. The Hunt 50-yard touchdown, as you and I alluded to back in the podcast in November, that play I understood. He made a very poor attempt at Hunt. Hunt's a good player, but Collins in that play made a bad play. Collins also made a bad play with Kelsey, which I agree with. Again, the 1-yard run with Hunt, I don't know what Collins is supposed to do there. But no matter what, Collins was really singled out. The run defense stunk that day. Jared, they rolled on defense. They really did. But I'll say this, and you and I both felt it.
Yeah.
I thought the Browns' offense, though, clicked. It just didn't show up when you're getting blown out like this.
Yeah.
But I thought the offense showed some spark in this game.
Well, if I remember, there was a little bit of a Baker scare for a moment, right? Mm-hmm. And I thought it might have been his head, and that made me even more nervous. That was at the end of the second quarter, I believe.
Going into halftime, he got dinged on the head, but it ended up not being a big play.
Right, yeah. Which was great because beyond that, Baker still went for almost 300 yards in that game, 2 touchdowns. He had his 1 interception. Nick Chubb, he rushed for 25 carries or 22 carries, 85 yards. On the offensive side of the ball, it was not a terrible day. It wasn't. Yep. And really, at the end of it all, we kind of knew what we were hoping for. We were hoping to see signs of improvement on the offense going into that game, and we knew that there was no way that the defense was going to even come close to being able to stop that Kansas City offense.
They were juggling.
There was just not. They're not going to be able to touch them. Yeah. So the fact that we scored 21 points, the fact that Baker had a great day, throwing the ball, that Nick Chubb looked good running the ball. those things were what we were worried about because we had no idea what to expect out of Freddie Kitchens.
Yeah.
We had no idea what to expect following, your head coach and your offensive coordinator being kicked out and sliding Greg Williams in as the head coach, the interim head coach. So this was expected, and we saw the improvements we wanted. At least you and I did. I wasn't losing my mind over that loss. I'm sure that there probably were some Browns fans who were, but I think what we felt at the end of that game translated really well over the rest of the season.
Again, sometimes in the schedule game, you play the wrong team on the wrong week, and this was this case. You could not have picked a worse opponent for the Browns. I mean, you just could not have. The Chiefs were just, and again, they made the AFC Championship game, so they were legit. I agree with everything you said. Duke Johnson always also had a big. This was the Duke Johnson game. It just gets muddled because they lost. He had 9 receptions for 78 yards and 2 touchdowns. Duke had a nice day. The big thing here, though, that I really took out of it as well, that we knew as the year went on, was the aggression of Greg Williams. Greg, from day one, was going for on 4th down, going on 2-point conversions, which I didn't like, but he was being aggressive, and I think, Jared, that set the tone. This game really set the tone going forward. The other thing that was kind of more of a downer, this was the game you really saw the changing of the guard on the injury front. Kirksey's out for the year after this game. Yeah. E.J. Gaines is out for the year in this game. And this is kind of, first half of the year, Denzel Ward had a fantastic year. He was going on to have like one of those like eye-opening years, in my opinion. Sadly, in the second half, and it kind of started off in this game, in Game 9, he gets dinged in this game. He has a hip. And really, Jared, outside the next game, really Denzel Ward does not play himself into many of these games in the second half of the year.
I'm looking at the psychological aspect of this, as I usually do, and I'm wondering if when Ward came back, if he's starting to hesitate and question his own decision-making on the field, and if that, in particular, is what affected his play throughout the rest of the season. Because many people would argue that even despite being more hesitant or not playing to his full potential, he's still making the same mistakes when it comes to protecting his head. I don't know, Andy. These are the question marks that I have going into next year. We all know that he has the potential to be a game-changing impact for every game of the year, right? We know that that's a possibility on any given Sunday,
right,
or Monday night,
or Thursday.
Yeah, so soon enough,
right?
So I mean, you've got at this point in the where we're at right now. I'm going to say it's a coin flip as to what Ward we get going into next season.
I think I think
he's worried.
I do too. I think the big thing he needs to learn: be more of a Deion Sanders at times. Make the tackles, but don't be thinking yourself as a hitter. We need you as a ball hawk. We need you as a cover guy. We love that you tackle, and you need that for sure. But a hard hitter, someone who makes like a jarring hit, I wouldn't be that guy anymore.
No, not on tight ends.
Not on tight ends, and by the way, not on big wide receivers too. So, I think those are the kind of things that for Denzel, I would hope he takes advantage of, because he's so skilled as a ball hawker, because he's so skilled as a cover guy. That's where we need you. Make the tackles in the open field. No one's saying that, but the hard hits, those kind of plays, Jared, I think that kind of stuff needs to be trimmed down a little bit. The other thing in this game too, and then we'll get to the week of leading up to the Falcon game. This was the first game, too, where Harrison was on the offensive line. Tough to tell in a difference like this because the Browns got blown out, but we noted you could feel the difference in this game. You could feel it.
Night and day on that offensive line. I never liked when they were referred to it as the Harrison experiment, with him over there. If it's an experiment, I don't have time for experiments. I just don't.
Oh.
I need football players that can play the position. Period.
Yeah, I don't want to pile on to Harrison, and
that's not even directed at Harrison. That's directed at the decision.
I agree. I mean, the coaches put the players out there, so you're right. Harrison did have a rookie season, and he needs to come back and work on things.
Yeah.
Jared, he had a pretty bad rookie season, even for a rookie. I thought he really struggled. It's one thing to say you're a rookie, and that's true. Jared, we watch enough football to know Harrison really had some battles out there.
The positive that we can take out of it, though, is that we know going into 2019, this Browns offensive line is better than expected at this point.
If they re-sign Robinson, yes.
Yes, if they can re-sign Robinson, I'm hoping that he's got the same mentality as Higgins does and is saying, let's make this happen. I want to stay in Cleveland. Look, that mentality, I think, could carry over for some of these guys as they start signing. We'll see. And all of that goes back to Baker and just the vibe in that building right now.
Right.
So and hopefully it works out.
No, hopefully it does. And the vibe, too, is positive even after this game. Mayfield thought there was a lot to build on. You and I just touched upon that. I think the bigger thing, too, that kind of came out the next day was the fact that everybody was on board with John Dorsey. I thought that was an important statement that came out in a Grossi article where John Dorsey basically said, look, I'm in charge now. You kind of got that vibe. And Mayfield, absolutely, we believe in what he's doing. He kind of said that leading up in the week to the Falcon game. You know, you don't really hear too much about the GM and other teams. But in this case for the Browns, it's important. I hope not to hear that kind of stuff next year during the season because it should be more about the play on the field. But I like that they concentrate on that this week because Dorsey really went out on a limb here for what he did. And to hear that kind of comment, you can see the solidarity. Even after a loss, the Browns were building positive momentum. It was a quiet week leading up to the Falcon game. Really wasn't much going on. The only kind of topic that would be something we should talk about now, and then we'll go to the Falcon game. Jared, obviously from week to week, the coaching rumors were getting heated up. And they were just that, rumors. Nothing really got leaked. Nothing really came that like, hey, this person's the leader, or you never really got a vibe even up to the very end before Coach gets hired.
No, yeah, I had no idea what was going to happen. Very
secretive, but definitely after the Chiefs game, you started hearing the rumors. And you really started getting in the forefront. So we should mention that as you go through this process here of looking back at the 18th season. By the way, that was my bad. I put the 19th season on the top. So Mr. Watson should get a reprieval there. That was all. That was
on the prompter. I'm going to read it.
Yeah, exactly. That's a Billman error here.
I'm wrong. Anyway,
exactly. So going right. So leading up, Sunday, November 11th is the Falcon game. You know, you and I both had a feel for this game that this was a good matchup. This is the right before the bye week as well, and the Browns fell into right what they needed. Right, we just had wrong team, wrong week, right team, right week.
Yep.
The Falcons came in hot. They had won 3 in a row. They definitely overlooked the Browns. That played a part of this game. But also, even if they didn't, the Browns match up well with teams like the Falcons. The Browns are on defense are so much focused on not giving up big plays. That's what Atlanta focuses on. And they really don't rely on the run. Those are two positives for the Browns defense, and it's shown this game. And more importantly, this was the explosion game for Mayfield, the explosion game for Nick Chubb. These two guys just zoomed up in the process of how good they were going to be.
I came into this game, and I remember the podcast prior when we did the preview episode, and I flat out said, if I remember correctly, I came as close to guaranteeing a win as I could have. Some might have thought that was a risky bet. I just did not see the Browns having any trouble with Atlanta. I couldn't see it. I feel like that team is just on the downward trend. They really are. They're a team full of talent that has disappointed perennially. Did I say that word right?
Perennially they have been. And you know what really played in this game? Mayfield only missed 3 passes, 17 of 20, 2 of 16, 3 touchdowns. And Nick Chubb, that touchdown run, Chubba wubba wub, as Jim Donovan said, that was a staple. One of the I think it is.
It is the longest. It's the longest Browns rushing touchdown from scrimmage.
I mean, great run. You know, look, they really exploded in this game. Everyone in the wide receiver group got really hit on, which is nice. Higgins came back in the game before. You definitely felt his presence in the Chiefs game. You certainly felt it in the Falcons game. Yep. And then we alluded to this, but this was the game, Jared, you felt it. The Greg Robinson era had started in the Chiefs game, but boy, it got amplified in this game. The O-line was outstanding. They never really got at any point close to Mayfield. And the other thing that we had alluded to during the game was the impact of Freddie Kitchens already. And I put it back in our notes here today because you could feel the Freddie impact in this game. And other than a weird play that Freddie Kitchens called in this game, outside of that, boy, the play calling was sharp. It was right on. And, I'm all over the place. But the other thing I do want to mention here, Peppers, I've been down on Peppers a lot. I will say in this game.
How couldn't you be? And I don't say that to be mean to him either. It's not just because he comes from that state up north.
No. Well, this was one of the games he played well. Exactly. The Denver game was obviously the other. Denver was outstanding. But in this game, looking back at the notes, he had a big play in the third quarter to keep the Falcons out of the end zone. It kept Coleman out. Might have been the biggest play. I know the sack was the big play of the year for the Broncos. This could be justified just as big because the defense and Peppers leading the way really kept the Falcons out of the end zone. They ended up not scoring that play, and that was once that defensive stand happened, the game was basically over. You really never felt the Browns were going to lose.
And you also put it in the notes, and I forgot about this, about how well TJ Carey basically contained Julio Jones throughout the game, and it reminded me of these are guys that I didn't know what to expect, but I didn't expect a lot out of, and TJ Carey has really helped out big time in that secondary, and that game right there just shows.
Hey, if you look at Julio's numbers, they aren't terrible, but what they did was they didn't allow Julio to go off.
Right.
And that's the key about guys like Julio Jones. He's going to get numbers. Just don't allow him to run all over the field, open spaces. Carey never allowed that to happen. Also, Schobert had a really good game. Ward did a nice job. He was playing hurt, but he had a nice game. And, the bigger thing out of this to go into before we get to the bye week stuff, the big things we noticed, we talked about the offensive line, obviously Baker, we talked about Chubb. The other big thing here, penalties were down. And for the first time in this game, it really stood out, no drops. The wide receivers and running backs and tight ends did not have any drops. Mental errors were coming down. You could tell, Jared, they were coming on. They were starting to figure it out. It took 2 games, the Chiefs game and this game, but after the Falcon game, you could tell there's a breath of fresh air coming through Berea. You could feel. I'm
guessing that's the first game that they had no drops. Is that in the entire season? Correct. I'd be willing to bet.
I was gonna say they only had 3 incompletions. We'd have to look back. I know he did have 1 drop in that game. So
I think one of those incompletions was a throwaway too. At least
Correct.
One, possibly
Correct.
2. I don't remember.
But an outstanding game. They needed that win. Really, that whole week leading into the bye week was very quiet. Something that did come up first was Dorsey. He did, as every GM usually does, and the Browns have done this traditionally, the GM will speak during the bye week. Dorsey did as well. That was the famous comment, hey, we're looking for a man of character, someone who can lead young men. And then he threw in the end, we'll look at women as well. We're looking for anything in there to really be a great head coach. And so, that got a little bit of news, but that's kind of your basic statement from any GM looking for someone.
Exactly. That's exactly what I took from it. There's nothing special there. He said the cookie cutter comment. Of course, what other kind of guy would you be, or woman would you be looking for?
Well, exactly.
I'm looking for someone who doesn't have any character.
Right. So,
who treats kids like garbage.
Yeah. I mean, seriously. Right. Exactly.
And who has no experience.
It might be a risky character, has been known to associate with the mob, all those kind of things, right? So then all those things kind of go away. And really, Jared and I did the Sunday podcast. We're looking to do something fun and different. And boy, the Browns have a great way of knowing when to just dump on you with rumors and news. And to lead off Sunday, who else? I mean, this was the only rumor the Browns had, by the way. And it wasn't even a correct rumor. It was just whatever it was. It came out on Sunday Morning Countdown, the ESPN show by Adam Schefter, that Condoleezza Rice would be a possible interview for the Browns head coach.
Where would he have gotten that information from? Because we still have no idea where any of that. It was the most surprising and ridiculous. What do you even call that? I don't know. I don't know how it happened.
We laughed about it that day. It's hard not to laugh about it now because Condoleezza Rice hours later goes, look, let's pump the brakes. I am a huge Browns fan. I love the Browns. I am not interviewing for a position for the Browns coach or head coach, okay? Look, and she even made a funny joke in there saying, like, look, if you want to talk about prevent defense, like, give me a call. So I give Condoleezza Rice a fair shake in this because I thought she really played well. Played this off well, meaning she could have been very harsh about it. She did a nice job of really muting this as much as you could. But Jared, this is the only thing. I can't say too much else throughout the season. This kind of stuff, I hope you and I won't be doing throughout the year again. because this Condoleezza Rice rumors and these and the Wicker and the Seth articles really need to start going away.
Well, it just
really does.
Circus music plays in my head, or yakety sax, one of the two. Anytime stuff like this happens with the Browns organization,
again,
who's captain of the ship? Who's running this? Who's running this thing? What are they even? It's been such a mess at times, Andy, where you can't even respond to it because the ridiculousness level is just pinging.
How crazy was this? Again, it only took Rice an hour back. I got to put a statement out. The Browns, we need to put a statement out. That's how out of control this got.
Yeah,
it was out of, folks.
Which, by the way, if Condoleezza Rice had football experience and we
agree, she should be up there. But
absolutely.
Okay, it's insane. Everything was insane. Everything is insane. So then at around 2:00, it finally is like, okay, time to finally do our bye week. And so Thanksgiving week happens. Condoleezza Rice will not be the new head coach for the Browns. And we go to Sunday, the 25th. And, it's interesting, all that to lead up to Browns-Bengals, Hugh Jackson Bowl Part 1. Probably played in the Browns' favor that this was Thanksgiving week, so it took some of the edge off this game leading into it. Didn't take any of the edge during the game, which we all know, which we'll get to.
Right.
But I think it really played in the Browns' favor that they did not have a chance to really get into the PR battles with Hugh during the week. It really got muted. I don't remember I obviously remember statements coming out about Hugh, but because it was Thanksgiving week, Jared, really not a lot of build-up. Now, once it was Sunday, huge amounts. But really leading into that week, because it was a holiday week, you just didn't get the vibe of intensity as much as it was a normal Sunday.
It played out exactly how I thought it would in regard to Hugh coming into that, where the questions that were coming up were, what exactly is Hugh going to be able to give to the Bengals in regard to the Browns offense, right? Some of that stuff was talked about. And finding out now, no, this is great. Looking back now, and we knew, Andy, he didn't know what the hell's going on offense. He ain't going to be able to help with anything. And sure enough, I'm pretty sure that was it in the Seth article or was it somewhere else where it was, yeah, Hugh had this was an insider radio personality who's worked it in with the Browns organization Hugh said, the Bengals, Hugh didn't know anything. He had no information. No. Confirmed it. There's nothing. What the hell was he going to do? He didn't know what the offense was when he was here, let alone
No.
And the Bengals were disappointed that he couldn't give them any information.
No. And they played like that in the first half. I mean, this game from both Browns and Bengals games from kickoff was one-sided, where the Bengals basically got in the game because the Browns took their foot off the pedal. Baker had another amazing day. Chubb had a wonderful first half. The Bengals did everything wrong they could do in the first half. Dalton had mistakes. Mixon didn't look good. Mixon played great in the second half, but really a bad snap to start the second half really cemented it. The Browns recovered. Dalton miscue on a play. That, by the way, Dalton gets injured on that play and never plays another down again that season. The Browns go in and score. I know that they took their foot off the brake. There's a lot of sloppiness towards the end of this game, but look, it was this game and the game in Cleveland was never in doubt. But really the big story here became the Hugh Jackson situations. Demarius Randall picking off a pass, giving Hugh Jackson the ball on the sideline. All the banter in the pregame between Hugh.
Hilarious, by the way.
Oh, it's a great play. I actually like
Demarius Randall on Twitter just said Atlanta is trash, by the way, recently too. So Demarius does not hold
no. There's no filter. Which I kind of like.
Yeah,
so Hugh Jackson before the game was doing the politician thing, which he had been doing all along, which was vomiting. We're not going to relive that. We made our feelings known. We're not approving. Hugh had a bad way of going about this. I'm sorry. He is a nice guy, but he did not.
His short-lived media tour.
Oh, yeah. It was not. I did not come off well.
Andy, the other thing that I remember talking about, especially watching throughout the game, is when Vontaze Burfict is your leader, is the leadership that you've got, the leader on the field. Because that's what it was with Cincinnati. That's not a good thing.
Yeah, this game got very chippy in the second half. By the way, what a surprise! Got very, very chippy in the second half of this game. The bigger story came out with the comments after the game, where Mayfield pretty much made it known. And I'm proud of Baker for saying this. Look, we don't like the Bengals. Because of that, I don't want to be buddies with Hugh Jackson. That's how his first comment came out. And then the aftermath came out with Damian Woody and First Take. And then that's where, Mayfield doubled down and said, look, I kind of feel like he's a fake dude. I don't feel like he gives real feelings. And I don't feel like what I said was wrong or inappropriate. He's a rival of us. There's no hate, but it's a rivalry, quote Mayfield. That's just how I'm going to treat it. That's how our team should treat it too. It's not even comparable.
Well, because Woody was it Woody who tried to go after him about his transfer? His school transfer when he was in college too?
That's not even the same thing. I mean, it really is.
Right. No, but that's exactly what Baker went back and said. Like, Baker wasn't going to have a scholarship. What are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about?
No, and again, Hugh Jackson's getting paid.
Conflation. Ugh.
Yeah, I know. He's getting paid. So you can feel bad, but don't feel that bad. He's getting a paycheck next year too. So
he was getting double paychecks at the time.
Correct. He was. He's getting paid on the field and off. So again, all that's to be said. I know there's a lot of fallout here. What was surprising to me now looking back at it still was this story carried the whole week leading up to the Texan game.
And we worried about
every single day. It didn't go away. Right. It just kept going and going. And really, it didn't slow down till about Friday. This Hugh Jackson Mayfield became the whole talk, not in Cleveland, not nationally. I would even say a little bit of global. Like if you were a Browns fan or an NFL fan, this was the topic.
Right.
Number one for about 5 days. For about 5 days.
And we talked about how is that going to impact the Browns going into this Texans game? It's not a good sign. It's never a good sign. This is a distraction. This shouldn't be good. They need to stop this. And sure enough.
Faceplant.
Sure enough.
Faceplant. The one thing I want to get to before we get to the Texan game, the one thing I found that looking back at my notes that should be mentioned, and I think he did this right, was Kitchens really stood up for Mayfield. He really, really did. And that's the first time we saw the unity, I felt like, not just behind the scenes, but in the public. And Kitchens, and I quote, "First of all, I do not have a problem with Baker saying anything like that. The guy spoke what he felt to be true. I do not know when it became big news to speak the truth. If that's how he feels, then he should voice it. Hard Knocks is in here and everybody's looking for a story. He's giving you a story. He's telling you the truth. Everybody wants an inside look at the truth. Well, hell, that is the truth."
Well,
I'll
Andy,
tell you, that says a lot.
It says a lot, and we've talked about this as well in regard to Baker. Imagine if Freddie would have came out and said, "Look, he's a rookie. He'll learn. He shouldn't say things like that."
Which is a basic coaching line. I mean, to be fair, if we were to say that, I'd be like, "Well, that's a basic coaching hearsay." Anyways, didn't mean to interrupt, but continue.
But what we take out of that is, though, sure, he could have said that, but that's not the relationship that they have, nor is it the relationship that I think will work best, nor is it the relationship that would have gotten Freddie Kitchens hired as the head coach.
That's why I bring it up.
Yeah.
He really stood by his man. Because Greg did not speak on that kind of strength, or really did not. And by the way, I'm not saying Greg was right or wrong, but he really did not stick his neck on the line. Kitchens did. I mean, Kitchens really did in that moment. So leading up back to the Browns-Texans game, this was the last game where the Browns were just not competitive. I know at times they had moments, but if we're all being truthful here, this was a big faceplant. The Browns really played poorly in the first half. Mayfield had 3 interceptions, 2 balls knocked down. He ended the day strong. He ended up almost 400 yards and a touchdown, but really the first half set the tone. The defense in this game was horrific. It compounded itself with the Denzel Ward concussion, which played a big role in what happened to him in the second half of the year. And the big thing here was Lamar Miller, who is not the sexiest player, but boy, he had a great day. He did whatever he wanted to do, and when he wasn't running, Watson was making throws or Watson was making plays for his feet. Really, in this game, Jared, when we come back and looking on, that game was the last game the Browns just were never in the fight. Well, it never got close, for being truthful.
Baker was never comfortable. Baker forced throws into windows that weren't there.
Yeah.
Baker was pressured, I think, a lot in that game.
He was. He had
but he couldn't find receivers either.
Couldn't find receivers. the Texans have a great pass rush. When Clowney and Watt are, by the way, anytime J.J. Watt plays the Browns, he's becoming a problem.
Yes.
And J.J. Watt had a wonderful game in this game too. Really, really stood out in watching it again. Garrett also played well in this game. He did have some false starts again, but he played well. Jarvis Landry had a big day again, 6 catches, 103 yards. The thing is that you take out of this game is the Browns really allowed the Hugh Jackson story, I think, to kind of play on the field a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think the bigger thing here that I mentioned, I thought this was a big game for Greg Williams. I thought this was a big game if he really wanted to be the coach. And looking back on it, Jared, he really had a rough day. The Browns didn't seem ready to play. He had some strange timeouts at the end of the first half. And again, in the second half, he had a weird timeout again here and there. The Browns have got to, Williams is going to look back and he goes, why didn't I get the job? I think this game played a big part. You hate to put on a single game.
How did the noise that carried through the Bengals game distracted from a huge game against a playoff team? You can't have that happen. And
on the road.
Period.
Yep.
Period.
And not surprising, the days after that is when the Lincoln Riley rumors really swirled up. This was the only week you really felt the Lincoln Riley stuff because Dorsey was going to a lot of Oklahoma games at that point. Oklahoma was playing Texas for the Big 12 championship, so he was there live and in person, which would have made sense because then he could just drive south to Houston. So Dorsey and Riley at that point, the rumors were really hot going into the Browns-Panthers game. The Browns-Panthers game on the 9th really played kind of similar to what you looking back at now should have happened. Baker outplayed Cam Newton. And boy, I don't know if you would have been confident saying that at the beginning of the year. But in this game, the Browns hold on 26-20. But boy, the big story in this game is the headline. Mayfield outplayed Cam Newton.
Wow.
Jared, what a huge statement in this game. It really showed. Newton couldn't make throws at the end of the game, and Baker did.
And that's exactly what I was going to talk about because what I remember going into that game is I felt the same way I did in the Atlanta game. I felt that this is another team that finds a way to not play to their potential, especially the way that Cam had been playing throughout the season coming into that game. And it ended exactly like we thought it would, I believe, on a Cam Newton interception. It was, Cam didn't have any touchdown passes that game. In fact, he was missing receivers like crazy. I think he overthrew a few in the end zone where the ball floated away, and you just wondered his arm just did not look all there. And he might have taken a hit or something too. Man, see, now I need to rewatch it. But I think
he got dinged up, but he was injured coming into the game. And he just looked banged up. I wouldn't say old. He looked banged up.
Yeah. The
big plays in this game on the defensive side, Newton had a 3rd and 4th down throws from the 3-yard line, 3rd and goal, 4th and goal. He did not complete the 4th down pass, the play was there. He just missed it. And 3rd down was a tough throw. He couldn't make the tough throw, though. Could have made it. Didn't make it in this game. Those were the big plays that really stood out on the defensive side. Landry had a wonderful day aside. He did have a terrible fumble in this game, but Landry, again, I want to repeat the fans. Landry really played well a lot. I think he gets forgotten. Landry had big numbers again in this game.
Well, yeah, and he also ran the ball. There were a couple rushes, I believe.
Yes.
The two rushes for 54 yards.
I mean, he played really, really well in this game. So I think those are the things that really stood up. Garrett was a beast in this game. The only thing from a side note, this was the game Perriman started standing out.
Yep.
Perriman really started making his emphasis felt. And I think the other little thing here, it's a feather in the cap, that really the Browns are going to have to work on next year. They're lucky. McCaffrey was all over the place for the Panthers. And really, if they would have ran him more, Jared, I think this might have been a different outcome.
But we knew they weren't going to run the ball like they should. They refused to do it, and that's fine by me.
Yep. And by the way, Newton can't, at this point in his career, Newton may not be as good as Mayfield and improved in this game. I mean, we'll have to see if that continues next year. I think it will. I think Mayfield surpassed him, but in this game, it was cemented because when those two played against each other, it wasn't very close, Jared. Mayfield was clearly the better quarterback. So that's a very good, solid win. You kind of get back on the winning streak, and then, again, you get into this period where old history meets new. The Broncos, which we're not going to review today, has a long history with this organization. when you are 5-23 against a team going into Denver on Saturday night on national television, Jared, it packs a lot of excitement. Gosh, could we finally beat the Broncos?
Exercising demons.
Yes. And this is this one game where it's not a division rival. It didn't get in the playoffs, but this was my favorite game. I loved this game. It was close. It was exciting. The Browns ended up winning by 1 point in this game. Mayfield does it again, but doesn't have his best game, Jared. And that's what I love about this game. Mayfield didn't have it compared to he did the other games we were speaking of. Mayfield was off at times. Aside from the first drive in the first quarter, Mayfield didn't really play that great in the first half. But boy, Jared, any time you could feel the Browns need to drive the ball or get points, Mayfield did it. Nick Chubb was outstanding. He outplayed Lindsey in this game. This is the game that earned Nick Chubb every bit of his second-round pick. He was wonderful in this game. We spoke about it. We should say it again. Peppers had the game of his life. He not only made plays on big downs, he not only made the game-winning sack, you saw him in the TV screen a lot. He was outstanding in this game. Really
Andy,
was.
There's going to be times throughout the year where you're going to need other players to step up when your quarterback just isn't having the greatest day.
Yep.
But if those other guys step up, look what happened. You got your quarterback who ends up. I mean, they had to score a touchdown in the fourth quarter to win that game.
Yes.
So, and it happened.
I'll say this too. This game was the game too where the Browns had really come full circle. 17-16, Browns are driving down. Nick Chubb's having it's the Nick Chubb drive, and it's 4th and 1, and it appears that they get the first down the play before. Where David Njoku reaches it out for the first time. I thought he got it. I still think this day
he did get it. Let's just say it. He did get it.
But boy, the Browns never got any calls like that this year. They just on anything that was coming down to yardage or a spot, boy, the Browns never got it. That was a weird play. There was no camera angle appropriately there. It's just such a Denver thing. And so on 4th down, which I do agree with Williams, that was the right play call there. Chubb gets stuffed for a loss, but the Browns overcame that. Peppers again makes a game-winning sack. Keenum, unlike Mayfield, could not get the ball in the end zone more than that was the difference in the game. Mayfield scored 2 touchdowns. The Broncos, along with Keenum, only scored 1. That's your difference. The Browns make enough plays to keep them out of field goal range, and they win the game. It is my favorite game. I was so excited. I'm still excited today talking about it.
Yeah.
Even after Sunday, I know the Browns' playoff hopes were basically dimmed. This game, though, meant so much to me as a lifelong Browns fan. To finally beat those blank holes in Denver, to get them where we want them, to finally get those guys and that stupid horse noise and all that BS we put up throughout all the years and all that crap and that orange all that stuff, to win that game meant a lot to me as a Browns fan. I know it meant a lot to Browns fans too, but it meant a lot to me. That was a great, great win.
I'm always gonna despise the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm always gonna be disgusted about everything in regard to the Baltimore Ravens, and I am always going to want to beat the living piss out of the Denver Broncos because that history will never stop hurting, and that's just the way it is.
By the way, it's only 6-23. That didn't count for 10 wins, so it's it's only 6-23, but. When
I'm in my 60s, we'll hopefully have turned the tide completely.
Right, but what a one! Again, that's my favorite win of the year. The other big thing that came out Sunday morning, the next day, the Freddie Kitchen rumors heated up in a different sense. That's when Jay Glazer came out the next morning and reported on Sunday on the Fox Sports show that he has the job locked up as return to the offensive coordinator. And that's the first time, Jared, we heard something that wasn't Condoleezza Rice worthy, where you could feel coming from a guy like Jay Glazer and Adam Schefter, you could put some weight into it, where it's like, wow, sounds like the Browns are actually making a move on Kitchens. And that for the rest of the year became a big part of our conversation with the head coach. It's going to be blank with Kitchens, right? It's going to be blank with Kitchens, right? And this was the day it started. On the 16th of December, when Glazers came out with that report, that's the first time the Kitchens train really got ramped up.
It was hard to see him not being with the team. How could you even possibly think about letting him go? And Andy, what was really it was still, though, I remember a lot of the conversation in the back of my mind thinking, because of things like Condoleezza Rice, because of the lack of other rumors, I still was hesitant in regard to my acceptance of what I knew the Browns were going to do. And I was hoping that they would go that path. I couldn't see how they could possibly let Freddie go. I had to calm myself and say, well, if they do, Dorsey knows something better, and Dorsey we trust. But it didn't make sense at that point. As we obviously have found out, when you're worried about losing a guy like Freddie Kitchens, and you don't want to force a marriage, just give the whole thing to the guy.
That's right. That's right.
Who knew? Who knew?
Well, this rumor really kicked off the Freddie Kitchens is coming back machine. No, we didn't know what capacity yet, but this is when it got kicked off. So that Sunday, again, boy, the Browns didn't play a game, but boy, they were felt on that Sunday. Yeah. They were the talk. Yeah. It's amazing. The Browns were such a big talking point in games where they weren't playing, and that's another example there. So you skip, again, no Sunday game, obviously, but the Saturday win. The bigger thing, too, that came out that week was that's the week Baker started really, I would say, actually became the leader of the team. It was kind of always figured, but Jared, I felt after the Bronco game, he really took that mantle. The last two games, it was Baker's team. And when you come out statements with this during the week, we want to win our last two games. If the guys on this team don't want to do that, then you can get out. That's quite frankly how I feel. And I tell you what, Jared, I love to hear that from him. Love this guy. God, it's hard not liking Baker. These last 2 weeks, though.
This is the strange part about Baker and the people that like him and don't like him, and because of how good he is, and I actually like this, is that there's going to be an issue with him nationally. And if you think about it, all the greats have that issue where they're loved at home and hated everywhere else. So that's a good sign, Andy. That's a good sign. There's a lot of people that don't like how he talks or what he says, but then there's also a bunch of us that actually do love it. And I just hope it is a sign of our future. You're completely gone. Your audio is completely gone.
I'm back now. Sorry. 1, 3, 2, and taking that point, Jared. The bigger thing here that really came back to was emphasizing the fans. Hey, you got to come back. Sell out the game. The fans sell out the last game at home. Again, details of this game, I think, are fuzzy because it really played like the game in Cincinnati. It was a big blowout. The Browns win, and a big blowout early, a block punt. Boy, special teams, All right, I'm going to do one rabbit hole. Then I'm going to come back to this game. We didn't mention the missed field goal in the Panthers game. I mean, that missed extra point in the Panthers game. I didn't mention some other things out here throughout. The special teams, don't think special teams got better throughout the year. Special teams.
That was the thing we overcame. Still on the back end of the season.
I did not hit on this podcast as much. Special teams did not improve throughout the year. Okay, back to the game. Just want to mention that.
I will say that the one minor improvement was when it was Callaway returning the ball towards the very end of the season. That's the only small improvement that I saw. I do not want Jabril back there returning anything.
No.
Sorry, I don't.
But, no, I agree. No, he's done. No, he needs to. No. So the Bengals get back in this game off a block punt. Again, the Browns at the end of the game run the clock out. You never really felt this game was in doubt. But again, the Bengals made it interesting. It played again exactly what it did back in November and Thanksgiving week. Browns were up big. They hit the snooze button. They came back and won, but it really was never in doubt. It really never felt like the game was under any pressure. The big play of the game was the Nick Chubb run that broke into the open field, and he almost scored for a touchdown, but gets tackled in the deep inside the Bengals territory. And, of course, that's the famous moment where Mr. Mayfield looks back, stares down Hugh Jackson, just to emphasize his disgruntledness towards you.
Oh, it was the longest stare down ever.
Yeah, I don't know how much you want to touch upon that. I'll just say this. I was not as thrilled about that as I was about the other things he did. I got why he did it. I'm really glad Hugh Jackson's, unless I'm mistaken, doesn't have a job right now in the NFL. I don't want that, obviously. But I'm kind of glad Hugh Jackson's out of the Cincinnati thing because I'm ready for this Hugh Jackson thing to kind of go away. And I guess and that last moment hopefully is the last time this gets brought up. Because I think after this thing, Jared, we kind of mentioned it, I'm good with Baker and Hugh for the rest of my Mayfield career as a fan. I don't need to hear about the Hugh and Mayfield relationship.
No, I don't. I will say this. I thought the stare down was amusing when it happened, but I also felt the same way that you do. Like, yeah, that's funny, but can we be done? Let's just let it go. Let's just.
Yes.
And yes. I get why Baker does it. He's got that chip on his shoulder. Those types of things kind of motivate him in a sense. What I'm hoping is, and I think he will, is that over time he's going to find other motivations that don't distract.
I agree.
Throughout the rest of the week.
Look, that was his final moment, so I'm okay with it at the end of the day. And again, Hugh's not going to be back for Cincinnati as an assistant, so we're good there. Little points here and there in this game. Chubb had a big day. Landry had a big day, throwing and receiving. Again, for people who don't think, Landry had a really good year. Doing back in this podcast, Jared, Landry had a really, really good year, and his numbers and his play show it. Big catches. It really isn't a lot of games. Big throws. There isn't a lot of games where it's like, gosh, Landry didn't do much. So I just want to point that out. I think people are really underrating what he did this year. The other big thing in this game that kind of came to fruition as we knew, because it was becoming very tenuous, the Browns were officially eliminated. But you know what, Jared? It didn't really matter because the city of Cleveland was a Browns town again. I thought it was ignited by a couple wins. It was definitely burned to fire in the Bronco game, and the torch was lit after the Bengals win at home. It was back. We had your leader in place. Everything was riding high. Even though they're officially eliminated, it was hard not being a happy Browns fan in late December. It really was. It was really a great time.
To an extent, it's emotional because we've been dragged around as fans for a long time.
Yes.
Paying a lot of money to go to games and watching. I remember being Christmas Eve. Was it Christmas Eve or day? It was Christmas Eve at the Browns-Steelers game a few years ago when they got torched. I remember, I remember living all of that, and you just sense that there's a new era in Cleveland Browns football, and that city knows it.
Yeah, I agreed. We go to so it leads up all this week. The CBSA crew is now going to Ravens-Browns, which was the right call. That was the game. The Ravens were playing for their playoff lives. Same time as the Pittsburgh-Cincinnati game's going on. Felt like a big game. Was a big game.
Yeah, they kicked it to 4 o'clock.
Yes, and they needed to. It was a huge game. It was the game. I know a lot of people were watching Vikings and they're watching, but that game of the week for 17 was Browns, sorry, Browns-Ravens. It was the game of the week. And unfortunately, the Browns did not win. There were some things in this game that we shouldn't nitpick too much, but the one play I do want to highlight because I think it kind of cemented a couple things that we hope will change. One, in a bad way, sadly, for the Browns, their running defense was exposed again in this game. For a team to run for almost 300 yards in a game, Jared, 296 on the ground.
Well, you had a quarterback who isn't going to be able to throw the ball that well, and who is a running quarterback on top of Dixon's day, and not even. They had what? They had nearly 300 yards rushing.
296, 290 for a today's NFL. That is alarming. That is an alarm. 200 yards is alarming. 296. It's a lot of yards on the ground. The first half was really dominated by the Ravens, and this was the second bad point, sadly. Terrible referee calls. I thought the Browns, we're Browns fans, so we see it through brown and orange glasses. Everybody got bad calls. I'll tell you, this call really changed the game in a way. Peppers gets a fumble from the 1 yard line. Was going to score. What is
the rush, the blow, the frickin' whistle?
Terrible call. Really kind of changed the outcome of this game, in my opinion, but it is what it is. Everybody went through these.
The line judge was a yard off the line too, if I remember correctly.
It was just a terrible call. It wasn't close. And really, Lamar Jackson really didn't come that close to scoring either. Ball gets. It's inches away, but you gotta know not to blow the whistle. You got to eat the whistle there. They don't. The Browns still though come back. Wouldn't be a game without a Greg Joseph missed field goal. He misses a field goal at the end of the first half, and then the second half starts. And Jared. Again, kind of what we saw throughout the year. Mayfield gutting games out. Didn't have his best game, but gutting him out, making plays. Here come the Browns. They score in the first drive in the second half. Callaway fights late to get a touchdown in the fourth quarter. And when they stopped the Ravens, you could feel it. You could feel the momentum building. Landry makes a very big catch, gets the ball to the 39-yard. Now gets the ball to the 45. Then there's a penalty, 39-yard line, and the Browns never move the ball again. It ends up in a Mayfield interception. Yeah. I know this game didn't have anything going on into what was going to be in the postseason. I would have loved for the Browns to win this game. I'm not naive. It doesn't carry over and all that stuff. Jared, I still feel this way. I would have loved for the Browns to have this game. I think this would have been a really, really good win to start off next year. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen. They end up losing the game. They played really well. The Ravens deserved the game. I thought the Ravens outplayed the Browns. That's why I love this game. So the Browns would have won this game. Yeah. They would have won this game not playing their best football. Andy, on the road in a big spot.
I can't agree with certain people that want to say that there's two positives that there are certain fans and certain pundits will say are positives to take out of this game if you're a Browns fan. And one is use the negativity of losing this game to carry into next season because that's the kind of stuff that Baker Mayfield, grabs onto for motivation. Okay, you know what? That's not making me feel any better. Number two is, you got to keep the Steelers out of the playoffs. Look, I like seeing the Steelers, their faces of misery. But you know what? That team is going to be miserable on their own doing over the next couple of seasons. So I don't give a flying you-know-what about keeping them out of the playoffs. The only thing I care about is the Browns being in the playoffs. So whether it's the Ravens, the Bengals, or the Steelers, I don't care. I don't care.
Well,
because that's not the team I root for. And whether they got in or not, I don't care. The Browns weren't in, and that's the bummer. And that's all I care about.
And losses don't carry motivation to next year. I'm telling you. They don't. Look at any sport. Losses do not carry as motivation. You can be motivated if you don't win the World Series. You can be motivated if you don't win certain things. But a regular season loss, it won't carry, I think, as much as people think.
Right.
The other thing here, too, not to get too negatives, I want to end on a positive, and we will. The book ending of no wins again, a tie and a loss. I think the Browns need to really start focusing in on, we need to start booking in these games with wins. And that's something that should be a focus. Because late in the year, these games count. And the Browns did a great job. They won 3 out of 4 at the end of the year. That's great. What a wonderful way. That's unlike Browns in the past. But they're going to have to learn, as they did in Denver. Sometimes in games in Baltimore, you have to overplay when you're not playing your best football. They did a great job of that in Denver.
Yeah.
They just didn't quite have enough here. I thought John Harbaugh's experience really played a big role in this game too. And the other thing here that came out, which you can't help it kind of came out before the game that Williams was not coming back. And I don't know if that played a role in this game. I don't think it did, but still, that's not the greatest thing to be coming out right before kickoff, is that, hey, your coach isn't coming back. Even if he gets interviewed, he doesn't think it has a big vibe. So this game did have a weird tinge to it. With that said, that kind of bookends the play on the field. Looking back, you can, if you want to dissect rumors, which it was all rumors, nothing factual. The interview process came and went, and really Freddie Kitchens was the last guy, and as we know, he became the head coach. I didn't feel like breaking it down as much, Jared, because I think that's kind of overkill at this point.
Well, yeah, we've talked about it ad nauseum.
Yeah, I mean, he is what it is, but I'll tell you, and here's how we're going to end this podcast: 7-8-1. And if you are not fired up as a Browns fan about next year, seeing what you have now, where you, like I was telling Jared, we were talking about before the podcast, both of us were, Accorsi, Schottenheimer, Kosar, Dorsey, Kitchens, Mayfield. You have your core 3. You are now ready to go. I think this team does need to be put on notice, and I think they will win 10-plus games next year. I do. And it's not going to be easy.
Andy, there's also there's a lot of I hear comments in Browns media of can it still be a positive if the Browns go 8-8, 9-7, whatever? If they go 9-7 or 10-6 and don't make the playoff, look, I can probably live with 10-6 and not making the playoffs. We've seen that happen with the Browns in the past.
Sure.
I can live with that, but I'm going to tell you right now: stop with this mediocrity. Will still show improvement through mediocrity BS. That's and I don't know whether it's because they're hesitant because of just the way that that things have worked out for the Browns in the past 19 years. Oh God, it hurts even saying it. But Andy, I don't feel that way. I don't know how you can look at this team and say, you plug a few holes on that run defense, you get a playmaker on offense, you get a couple guys in free agency when you've got the most money to spend of any NFL team. You're going to try to tell me that anything less than 11 or 12 wins this season? Like, what? No, that's not even a question. I'm sorry. I expect it.
This team's ready.
Not this. No, well, they might not be ready next year. Maybe
no,
the year after. Get the hell out of here.
They are ready.
What they did to overcome the firing of their head coach in the middle of the season, the firing of their offensive coordinator in the middle of the season, the BS with Hard Knocks, the bus driver who drove over people, all of it, the injuries, the guys that you never expected to hear their names making plays.
Teams being the kryptonite of a season where you can circle
there's 4 wins there in this season. There's 4 wins right
by
there.
The way,
this team is a playoff team with special teams.
By the way,
they are.
I can't believe I'm saying this. What's the first thing I'm looking forward to in free agency? Who's our kicker? Who's our kicker going to be next year?
I don't care if they pay a kicker $7 million, $8 million. I don't care.
Do it.
Hey,
do it. He's worth every nickel. I can't tell you. That's the one thing on this podcast. I'll end on a positive. There are so many times in this game where you'd be like, all right, Browns Panthers is a great example. They come back to take the lead in the fourth quarter, miss extra point. Okay. Into the first half against the Ravens game. Here we go. We're about ready to get some momentum. Miss field goal. There are so many damn times in this year, Jared, when the Browns would have this momentum and special teams. We're about ready to put the Bengals away. A block punt. I mean, time and time again.
You can complain about refs this season.
They had some
special teams is what cost. That cost us more games than the refs.
Peppers in the Buccaneer game. All that to be said. Landry, wonderful year. Nick Chubb, wonderful rookie year. Mayfield is a leader, great. Mayfield on the field, a record setting with a rookie throwing 27 touchdowns.
Not starting the entire season and still setting that record.
Perriman of great free agent pickup. Myles Garrett, a Pro Bowler. Denzel Ward, when healthy, not just a Pro Bowler, a game changer. Denzel Ward could be a game changer if he stays healthy. You see all these great things.
Larry Batonio, even though he stood up for you at the
Joel had a great year. Larry Ogunjobi playing with torn muscles and playing in big spots. Hard not to love this team. Peppers, he drives me crazy, made the game-winning sack. Had a wonderful game against the Falcons. Even he had great moments. Jared, this team is propelling forward. This isn't a bunch of old dogs either. This is a great new pack of dogs. They're great. They're hungry. They're ready to rock and roll. It's going to be exciting. I don't see how they don't win 10 games next year. And they don't play an easy schedule. They're playing both the Rams and Pats next year. So it's not going to be easy.
Play here, Andy. People want to play here and play for these guys and play with the leaders on the field. Next season, don't come at me with you can still find improvement if they don't get the hell out of here with that. I have no time for it.
Yep.
I have no time for it.
Final thoughts from me, then I'll let you wrap. I just think this has been a great year, a great season. It ends officially on Sunday with the Super Bowl ending. I'm really looking forward to free agency. I'm really looking forward to see what the next moves are. It's going to be nice not to have a draft depend on your fandom life like it will this next time around. The draft this year is not going to be as big a deal. It's always a big deal, but it's not life-changing as it was a fan in the past years. It's going to be nice to be able to sit back and kind of watch the draft and not live the draft, if that makes sense. It's nice to be able to do that for the first time, Jared, as a Browns fan. And the excitement, I think, is legitimate, and the excitement is real. Take this. This is the team. You know, everybody's had their torch here in Cleveland. The Cavs, the Indians recently, I think. And now the torch has kind of been passed back now to the Browns. And, Jared, it's a great time to be not just a Cleveland fan, but a Browns fan. And if you aren't excited about this, and you didn't get into the Broncos win, and I don't know if you're ever going to get into it, and I agree with you, don't feel bad about saying 10 wins we're expecting, because you know what? We should. Even nationally, people are going to probably be, I hope, be feeling that. There's still some things to prove. We talked about the improvements this team needs throughout the year. But to see how, I guess my one thing too, Dorsey, he deserves credit, so let's give him credit again. Whether it's Landry, the pickup of Perryman, Greg Robinson, the job of selecting Baker Mayfield, as we talked about, knowing he had to fire Hugh after the Steeler game. Let's be fair, Dorsey got handed that deal, so he knew he had to cut the axe at some point. Knowing that Freddie Kitchens was the guy, he did a hell of a job getting here, and I can't wait for 19. Can't wait for 19.
Hey, want to remind everybody, thanks for listening to the podcast, first of all. If you want to listen to all the episodes, you can find them over at andyandjared.net. You can also find them at clevelandandbeyond.com. Both of those links will send you to the same webpage. You can also follow our blog, which we have not been keeping up on our Tumblr account lately, but we've got a lot of exciting things to talk about that have been keeping us busy and off of the blogging as much as so much at this moment. Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, and then one thing, too. So next thing's up for us, we'll do, obviously, Cavs and Indians. We'll keep doing the Browns. Free agency's up next for you Browns fans. That's the next thing to talk about. Already rumors about re-signing Perryman and Greg Robinson. The rumors of Jamie Collins swirling around, whether they'll keep him or not. Those are the next things up for the Browns. We will get back to more Indian stuff a little bit, Cavs stuff. And we'll go back to college basketball as well. So those are the things that are upcoming. I agree. We got to do more Tumblr stuff. And, please, if you listen to this, please listen to part 1 and 2 as well. It's a 3-part series. We also did something with Seth Wickersham, which I think was really good. And then we're going to also do a Super Bowl, not just preview, but really a prop bet special with Thrive. So that should be fun, too.
Yeah, don't forget, check out Thrive Sign Up by heading over to our social media accounts. You'll find the link in our bio at CLE and Beyond, at CLE and Beyond for Twitter, and on Facebook, it's facebook.com/Cleveland and Beyond. Also, don't forget, shoot us an email if you've got a question or a comment, a concern, andyandjared@gmail.com, andyandjared@gmail.com. What else am I missing here? I talked about the website. I talked about the social media. We are a part of the Pulse Podcast Network. Check them out at Pulse Podcast Network. You can sign up or you can follow on Twitter at Pulse Podcast Network. So check that out. Download the app as well. It's not just our podcast. It's a network of podcasts, obviously, from your favorite sports teams. We are representing the Cleveland Browns on the Pulse Podcast Network. If you're a fan of a different team and you just like listening to Cleveland banter, you can find your team there. So check that out as well. Andy, what else am I missing here?
Nothing else, and you're welcome if you aren't, and welcome aboard the Cleveland bandwagon. Come on aboard.
Yeah, Oklahoma. I know there's a lot of new Cleveland Browns fans that live in Oklahoma.
Exactly. So I think you said everything well. And again, final thoughts. Be excited, Browns fans. Don't be complacent. Wild season when we did these 3 parts here. It's kind of ironic how we landed here, whether it's Condoleezza Rice rumors to rumors about what happened at the end with Josh Gordon, which kind of ended sadly, and he goes to New England in a trade. Hopefully Josh is doing okay with his health. And then, kind of the twists and turns of Baker Mayfield. But yet here we are. And again, I think where it kind of comes down to is you have your core 3. You have your core 3 of Dorsey, Kitchens, and Mayfield. And when you have that, Jared, you're in great shape already.
Haven't seen it since we were kids, Andy. We haven't seen it since we were kids.
Corsi, Schottenheimer, and Kosar.
As I said, Kosar and Schottenheimer didn't even get along all that well on the field.
No.
He's Andy Billman. I'm Jared Watson. Thanks for tuning in. Andy and Jared, Cleveland and Beyond. We'll talk again soon. Take care.